council workshop and council meeting on May 15th. Could we please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I just want to make a quick announcement, guys. I watched the YouTube video last week, and a lot of us are not speaking into the microphones. I think we should need to do a better job doing that. Also, does any of the members of the council have a conflict of interest, the appearance of a conflict of interest, regards to any item on the agenda? And if so, please state it at this time.
Mr. Mayor, I do, and I have added it on to an agenda item. And I'm confused also about the agenda.
Okay.
First of all,
Is this a conflict of interest statement?
John, let him finish.
Didn't you ask for conflict of interest?
Yes, that's what I'm asking for.
I'm a little disappointed why the agenda went out so late. I don't think it's fair to the taxpayers for an agenda to go out the day before a meeting when it could be a very interesting topic that they may be interested in and may have made pre-arrangements.
Well, Rich, I just wanted to Rich, I just want to say something on that. I was traveling the other day, and I couldn't come in to look at the agenda, so that's why it was an additional day late. Put that on me, not at the town. Put it on me.
Thank you. Please help me understand this agenda. We've included a workshop in the middle of a council meeting. These workshop topics may require votes. So why are they considered workshop topics? Workshops are supposed to be discuss issues. We are not supposed to vote at workshops unless it's an emergency.
Okay, Rich, the only thing we're voting on today, to my knowledge, is the resolution on the fire fees increase, because we have to get that back to the county as soon as possible. Everything else on this agenda is not to be voted on today. It's just for discussion. Am I right, Lisa? Okay, so we just have one vote today because it's emergency.
There's only one vote today.
That's it, one vote. Number 3.
And what is number 3?
Resolution to support the fire fees increase.
That's the only matter, and we're kicking everything else down the road.
We're not kicking anything down the road. This is the workshop. We're discussing it.
This is a council meeting. It says right here, council meeting.
If I may, y'all might remember that we decided that we'd hold workshops during this day as well as other council meeting items.
Yes, but the workshop should be separate.
Well, I believe it was agreed upon to enfold it into the meeting.
I've been trying to deal with for the past 6 months.
A what?
How many times are we going to be kicking issues down the road?
Which issue is that?
Pardon me?
Which issue?
This is the issue regarding authorizing the council for the council to have the authority to decide whether or not to fill a fire staff vacancy. This has been discussed for 6 months. We have 17 firemen, more than any other town in this district. And also the highest budget, but that's a separate issue.
Respectfully, we can discuss all that when we get to that item.
We also have a personnel amendment for interim pay assignments.
Which no one has had a chance to review or discuss further.
I provided that 3-4 weeks ago.
And the rest of the council hasn't had it on the agenda yet until today when we had planned to put it on.
Mr. Mayor, I don't understand here. What has this got to do with conflict of interest?
Nothing, Charlie.
It's on the agenda, Charlie.
We're not to that.
Right now, what I asked, is there a conflict of interest right now? Period. No discussion about the agenda, just the conflict of interest. Does anybody have a conflict?
I wish to put that discussion on the agenda, Mr. Mayor.
Which discussion is this?
Charlie, real quick, what do you want me to put on the agenda, Rich?
Pardon me?
What do you want me to put on the agenda?
I wish to put on the, I would like to first of all remove the discussion regarding the dredging. It was stated last week that because of transparency, that this matter would be discussed at the June 4th council meeting.
Now, it's a little bit incorrect, Richard. We agreed to vote on the removal of Jinks Creek on June 4th. Today was a discussion on that matter. And we all voted on that, except for you voted no against it.
Why are we having a discussion today and then the same discussion on June 4th?
June 4th is a vote.
And plus, is this a workshop or a council meeting?
It's both.
Workshops have been separated from council meetings in the past. Why are they intermingled with the council meeting?
Rich, I'll explain to you one more time. There is one vote today on number 3, supporting the fire fees, because the county needs it. It's an urgency to it. That's why the only thing we're voting today is on the fire fees. Everything else is a discussion.
Has that been approved by the council?
Yes.
Has it?
Yes.
Take a vote.
We already did.
Okay, let's make it simple. I want to hear a motion that today is a workshop other than one item on new business number 3. We have to vote on it because of the urgency of it. Do I have a motion that we work this meeting as a workshop only to vote on one item only? Do I hear a second?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
No.
Okay. Is there any amendment or approval?
Well, let's go back to the
Conflict.
original question. The conflict that you asked.
What, do you have
Okay.
something to say on that,
Yes, I
John?
do.
Okay.
No, I have no conflict of interest on dredging. The town legal representative reviewed this twice and reported in June 2016 and April 2017 to that effect. I repeat this only because Mr. Serrato continues to raise this issue over and over and over. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor would like to read a statement, if I may.
That- If it's the paper he just passed out, that should go under item 5, subparagraph 4, recusal matter for conflict of interest of Councilman Corbett.
Don't I get a copy?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes,
if I may.
Mr. Mayor?
Well,
I'd like
real quick.
I'd like time to review this, since we just got it, before it's discussed.
Mr. Mayor, if I may read a statement, please.
Rich, people would like to review it real quick before you read it.
Pardon
You
me?
wait 1 minute, let people read it real quick?
Sure.
Thank you. Is this in order, Lisa, to do this and pass this out this late and allow him to read it? Or should I put this on the June 4th agendas?
As Councilman Corbett pointed out, it actually would fall under an item that's already on today's agenda.
So Richard, read it before that, that comes to motion, or right now?
That's your call.
All right. Richard, may read the,
Oh, Mr. Mayor?
Oh, come on.
I
Well,
still haven't finished this,
okay, Charlie.
and let's put it, let's have him
Charlie,
read
just
it.
let Richard read this and get it over, Fred.
I-
Charlie.
I don't want to do that. I want to have a chance to look at this.
Well,
Read
read it.
This is,
it's a page and a half, Charlie, read
I
it.
am, but you keep interrupting and telling him to talk. It's not, I don't care if he reads it. Let's do it at the proper time.
Well, I just asked Lisa, and it's up to me if I do it now or then, later. So just read it, Charlie, please.
First of all,
No, well, Rich, let him read it first.
Maybe you can help me understand, Rich.
Well,
What is?
let him read it, Charlie, and then come back and ask the questions, please. I want to get this done.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead, get it out of the way.
All right, Rich, I'm just giving you a warning. Please stick to the text only.
I have no intention to do otherwise.
All right.
Thank you. First of all, no member of the council should ever request a fellow council person to recuse themselves in order to avoid the appearance of a potential conflict of interest. They should have the conscience and grace to do it themselves. Moreover, no member of the council should attempt to rationalize, use, or cherry-pick the many conflicting statutes as an excuse to participate in any process which there could be a personal financial gain. This disclosure is the council's fiduciary responsibility in order to avoid even the slightest appearance of a conflict of interest and to protect the integrity of this body. As a result, I am requesting that Councilman Corbett be recused from further participation in any discussions or vote related to North Jinks Creek, the Bay Area, and also matters related to the dredging district where he resides. Unfortunately, this is not the first time this concern has been raised. If you recall, Councilman Corbett orchestrated an email campaign promoting the farmers market, knowing his family had a financial benefit, and accused several members of the council attempting to eliminate the farmers market for simply proposing the park usage rates. They were Councilwoman Scott, Councilman Serrato, and Councilman
I
Bennett.
don't see that written here.
Whoa, whoa, whoa.
Issues related to
Charlie.
issues related to the shoreline management program. Voted not to have the senior Brunswick County assessment representative attend a council meeting to discuss the real estate impact evaluations, which included assessments and property sales values. As a matter of interest, the assessment specialist for Sunset Beach, Chris Bonet, indicated that sales values for uninterrupted deepwater access under normal real estate market conditions could increase property sales values by up to 20%, while not having any effect on assessments, which are based on surrounding home sales. 2, failed to accept the findings reported by the independent coastal scientists of the environmental consequences if North Jinks Creek were dredged. Councilman Corbett claimed the report was biased. As a matter of interest, the report was proven to be accurate. 3, initiated the motion to dissolve the Environmental Resource Committee. 4, initiated an email campaign promoting the dredging of North Jinks Creek, which contained misinformation and information that was not approved by the council, creating taxpayer confusion. 5, the apparent continued reluctance to accept federal and state scoping meeting agencies' recent denial to dredge North Jinks Creek. Promoting the dredging of North Jinks Creek or any other program where there could be a financial benefit impacting the council member, especially when it only impacts a tiny segment of the population where the council member resides, may be considered grounds for a conflict of interest, according to the North Carolina School of Government. Moreover, these actions seem to test our newly enacted conflict of interest policy and the town's code of ethics policy. Carbon copy to Mr. Marizano, Ms. Angler, Mr. Richardson, and the Brunswick Beacon. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
John, I know you're eager to speak about this, and I understand. Let's go down the agenda and wait for it comes up for discussion at number 4.
You know, that doesn't stop you when he wanted to read this thing, which was clearly in item 5, section 4.
Well,
You know,
I asked
you
Lisa-
need to run this in
I
a
asked
fair,
Li-
comprehensive way
am.
to do it.
I
I
am.
don't think so, not at
Well,
all.
I asked Lisa when I could do it. I did it, get it over with, get it back behind us. Now you can speak as long as you want when it comes up to the agenda. Please, John. I understand your concerns.
I also object to this.
Okay, well. Public comments. Any public comments? Please come to the podium.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name's Teresa Manus. My address is 1609 Canal Drive. Teresa Manus. 1609 Canal Drive, and I'm here to address the proposed...
Ma'am, you're gonna need to take that microphone and speak into it so everyone can hear you.
Just lower it a little bit.
Just pull down.
There you go.
Start all over. Teresa Manis, 1609 Canal Drive, and I'm here to speak on the proposed dredging project. My family and I have been coming to Sunset Beach for over 30 years, and it's always been a dream of my husband and I to have a home on Sunset Beach. And in 2011, that dream became a reality. We purchased a home on the bay. My husband wanted to be here today, but he's home working hard to help pay for this investment. We, as other homeowners, bought these homes in good faith that there would be responsible leadership and responsible management of the water resources already in place years ago. Many of the homeowners rent their homes during this vacation season, and that income will be severely reduced if you continue to allow all these water resources to go away, i.e. the canals, the feeder canals, the bay, and Jinks Creek. Driving 3 hours down here last night by myself was not something I wanted to do on a Monday night. But I tell you, 3 hours alone in a car, in silence, gives you a long time to think. And there was one word that kept coming into my mind over and over again, and it was responsibility. I feel like it was my responsibility as a homeowner to be at this meeting and to voice my concern over this dredging project. It is my responsibility, as well as your responsibility as a town council, to provide and maintain these long-established water resources to this island, not just for this generation, but for those in the future. I want my kids to be able to continue to come here and enjoy boating and fishing, and hopefully one day I'll have grandkids that will want to come down here and do the same. But this will not happen if we continue to be irresponsible and let this viable resource go away. I am here today asking you, as elected officials that represent Sunset Beach, to let go of your petty squabbles within this board, respect each other, and don't let it interfere with the sound management and your duty as elected officials to help preserve the property rights and the property values of the taxpayers of Sunset Beach. I think you'll see many more homes go on the market immediately following any decisions to abandon dredging north Jinks Creek. This extra inventory will reduce property values throughout the island. If Jinks Creek becomes unnavigable, we estimate that our property value will drop by 25 to 35%. That loss will be absorbed by all property owners. I don't understand how, if the federal government is able to approve dredging, that this council in any way is qualified to overrule that approval. If this board is not capable of doing the right thing to protect the rights of the property owners, I think it's just the beginning of a flight away from Sunset Beach as a vacation destination for people with interest in boating and fishing, and a definite move away from wanting to own a home here. We are not asking for a free ride. We are more than willing to pay our fair share.
10 more seconds, please.
This is a small price compared to what will be done to our values if this council doesn't approve the dredging project. Please put away your disagreements within this board and approve this project. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, please.
Hi. Council members, my name is Hanson Matthews, and I'm so glad that this lady preceded me because she said a number of the same things that I was going to say. I'll reiterate.
What's your address, sir?
I'm sorry, sir?
Your address?
The property address over here is 423 Dolphin Street. We do not reside here, although one day we hope to. Every Sunday night when my wife and I leave to drive back to Wilmington, she just gets kind of misty-eyed and talks about the day we'll have to get to stop working and enjoy it. we have vacationed here with our family since the early 1990s. 2006, we had the opportunity to finally join 2 other couples and invest in a home here. At that time, I remember the listing broker was telling us that the homes at Sunset Beach, the canal homes, were trading at a 25% premium to that of Ocean Isle. Today, the opposite's true. It's not just about dollars and cents. You know, we bought in 2006. That's going to be what it's going to be. But what I believe is very, very salient is the maintenance of these canals so that people can enjoy it. We don't just enjoy it, our guests enjoy it, the visitors in the summer enjoy it, and because of my profession, I've spent 35 years in the real estate industry. I'm more than just a land jockey or a property jockey. I really study the regulations, both state and federal, in my business, and I've seen way too many times in the past few decades people advancing positions based on the guise of environmental responsibility when it's really just a cloak. I recognize that when I see it. I'm seeing it now. I'm asking very sincerely that that you proceed forward with the dredging, and I thank you for this time to comment.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Next, please.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Gary Merritt. I reside at 646 Oyster Bay. Have been a property owner for 5 years, but have visited Sunset Beach for 35 years. I'm a Wilmington native and have watched a lot of things that have happened to our coast. At the request of the previous Sunset Beach Town Council, the Sunset Beach Environmental Resource Committee researched the dredging project currently being considered. When the results of the discussions with many scientists and the information provided by them and experts were presented to the council chose to not accept them. Instead, the council decided to continue on the path recommended by the paid consultants M&N, who have been paid over $400,000. In addition, the Sunset Beach Environmental Resource Council was forbidden to communicate the results to the public, and subsequently all members resigned. Recently, the scoping meeting reviewed the project, and it's my understanding that they have stated that we will not approve the dredging of North Jinks Creek. I would hope the current council would review the information provided by the Sunset Beach Environmental Resource Committee, as well as the scoping committee, and vote not to dredge North Jinks Creek. Maintenance of current canals is an obligation to the current property owners, so they are 2 separate issues in my opinion. I live on the mainland, so under the current proposal I will not have to pay for the dredging. However, I can tell you from experience from the 60s and history in New Hanover County, eventually the cost of maintenance of the project will be covered by the taxpayers in Brunswick County and or Sunset Beach. Thank you for the opportunity of speaking.
Thank you, Gary.
Thank you, Eric.
Thank you.
Next, please.
Good morning. My name is Tom Borman. I'm at 1515 North Shore Drive. Just to reiterate what I've said here in the past, and also what some of the other speakers have said, that I'm very much opposed to the removal of North Jinks Creek from the dredging project. My concerns here are 2. One is that if we remove that from the dredging project, that it will never be considered again, and I think that it does require further discussion. I understand that the dredging project might occur in stages, but that North Jinks Creek still needs to be discussed. The second concern is that, I may be misunderstanding this, but I thought that the state said that we have to consider North Jinks Creek as a part of the dredging project, that we have to have access to the deep water. If we remove it from the dredging project, will they reject the other dredging permits? That would be a travesty in my mind. So please don't remove it. Let's discuss it further. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nina Marable, 502 North Shore Drive West. I'd like to say to the people who are commenting, who live on canals and so on, that I, like Mr. Merritt, believe that the maintenance of the canals and other previously dredged areas is very necessary. I would like to comment, so I'm sympathetic to your comments. However, I would like to correct, I hope I can remember three things that I heard said. One was that if the federal government had approved this dredging, the council shouldn't deny it. I have no reason to believe that the federal government has approved this dredging. The second thing I'd like to comment on is, with all due respect, sir, your comment about environmentalists being some kind of ruse for covering up some other agenda seems very strange to me. What would that other agenda be? I consider myself an environmentalist, and I hope a realist, and I have no other agenda in objecting to the dredging of North Jinks Creek other than an environmental one. Gosh, what was the third one? You just said it, but I can't remember. Anyway, I hope you will not understand that. I remember. I hope you won't believe that if we don't dredge North Jinks Creek, we can't dredge the canals. That's not what I saw, and I didn't go to the scoping committee, but I saw notes from various members, written notes, and that's not what I saw. What I saw was that the people, most of the people on the scoping committee for whom I saw notes said North Jinks Creek should be avoided, and it can be avoided by consideration of a variance to that presumed requirement that if we dredge the canals, we must dredge North Jinks Creek. I don't see that anywhere. I don't believe that's correct. Thank you.
Thank you, Don.
Thank you.
Any more public comments?
Jeff Fogel, 427 Cobia Street. I think that we should go ahead and discuss the dredging of North Jinks Creek. Seems like the only route that we're going to be able to take to deep water from all the canals on the backside of Sunset. And I think that, I don't know if this is the place right now to say this or not, but if everybody's against John being conflict of interest, I think...
Don't direct any questions toward the name. Just keep it general on what's on the agenda.
I think anybody that's on the council that also lives on the island, because your values are going to decrease, should be taken off for conflict of interest. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any more public comments? At least at this time, I'd like to move the agenda number 5 or number 1 up to discuss it now. Why Robert's here and everybody's discussing Jinks Creek and what we can and cannot do. And so I'm going to move the discussion to remove Jinks Creek to now. And all right, Harm. Okay, Robert, would you like to come to the podium?
Where's your shirt and tie?
Robert, I got a question for you. So people's got concerns about Jinks Creek. My one concern is I know Lisa sent you an email regarding mitigation cost on north end of Jinks Creek.
Yes.
Do you have a cost on that?
We do not have a cost on that at this point.
Could you give me an estimate in the next week or so?
I can give you an estimate next week or so.
Okay. The reason, gentlemen and ladies, I asked that question is if you do Jinks Creek, it's going to be a mitigation. If I'm right, Robert, there's 250,000 oysters in that area, clams and shellfish.
There was, we would be impacting on the order of 12,000.
12,000, sorry.
Probably.
That would have to be removed and put somewhere else, and we'd have to mitigate that for 10 years, Robert?
No, we would have to ensure there was no net loss oyster, or of shellfish habitat, so we could expect relocating or reestablishing somewhere on the order of, right now, my estimate is around 20,000 oyster. Now there's a lot of unknowns in there, as I thought the Division of Marine Fisheries used their survey for mitigation purposes. In the scoping meeting said they do not. So there's a lot of different ways we can look at how these impacts would create. It could be, but based on the survey and the information we have right now, I'd say we're looking at reestablishing 20,000 shellfish or oyster.
And we don't even have a place to put them yet, correct?
Well, they would have to be on site. They would have to be somewhere along Jinks Creek. Or
could it go into a feeder canal or no? A P&A?
Yes.
It could?
Yes. It would have to be somewhere adjacent to Jinks Creek.
Mr. Mayor, if I recall on a previous...
Real quick, I just want to make sure. Everybody has 2 questions, and it goes down the line, all right? Robert, and then we'll go back again if we had more.
May I suggest, Mr. Serrato is the one who put discussion to remove North Jinks Creek on the original agenda last time. Explain what his agenda is in terms and justification for removing North Jinks Creek. And then it's appropriate for us to ask questions and give our opinions.
That's fine, John. Good. Richard, tell people why you want to remove North End Jinks Creek off.
Well, Mr. Mayor, as you know, we've...
You need to speak into the microphone, Rich. Mr. Serrato.
Thank you. No, you can call me Rich. Mr. Serrato was my father. I'm just a good guy. The reason why I would like to have it removed is there are many. One is just not the blanket issue of the environment. I think there's not a person in this room that would say they are not an environmentalist. The concern about dredging Jinks Creek is not only the environment, and as Fritz Rhodes said, who's part of NOAA, Jinks Creek is North Jinks Creek is surrounded by P&As, and his opinion after working in Brunswick County and knowing the waters of Brunswick County, in his opinion, North Jinks Creek is a P&A. The only reason why it has not been classified as a P&A is because when they did the study 50 or 60 years ago, the study had to be truncated because funding was no longer provided to determine whether or not North Jinks Creek was a P&A. Also, this water quality issue that has recently surfaced. The Corps of Engineers indicated that the town can simply apply for a variance, which they indicated that would be merely routine to have it to have a variance to avoid or to minimize the water quality issue. And then I look at the business aspect of it. Well, first of all, the mitigation cost of the oysters, if I recall in the last presentation or one of the presentations that when we discussed that, was around between $600,000 and $700,000. And when you mitigate, there's no guarantee that this would be successful. And it takes costs to continue the studying of this mitigation. It's an endless expense. The business aspect side of this, other than sales values increasing for a very small segment of the population, is why are we spending millions of dollars? This is a business question. Why are we spending Sunset Beach taxpayer money, North Carolinian taxpayer money, spending millions of dollars just to have uninterrupted deep water access during low tide? You can travel through Jinks Creek during high tide. I have done it. I do kayak. I have traveled through North Jinks Creek during low tide. Takes a little work. But I've always been smart enough to know and looked at the tides to make sure that my passage was easier for me. So there's a lot of issues here that, secondly, I'm also, thirdly or fourthly, I'm also concerned about the fact that how this program evolved. The initial dredging program really started in February of 2014 when a developer proposed pierhead alignment. Well, that pierhead alignment didn't indicate the dredging of North Jinks Creek. Eventually, it was placed on the program. Why it was not placed on the program initially is a mystery. But it was later placed on the program without any taxpayer input or discussion. So this entire evolvement of North Jinks Creek, to me, is a little bit suspicious. And the recent water quality issue that the state said we had to take was suspicious. The feds indicated that it is not necessary to dredge North Jinks Creek to solve the water quality issue. There's a lot of unknowns. There's a lot of lack of clarity. And don't forget, once you dredge, dredging is forever. And then we've had discussions here on the council. Who's going to pay for this? The previous council, one council person said, this is a town expense. Another council person said, the impacted owner should pay. None of these issues have been defined. None of them. So, I do not support dredging North Jinks Creek. I have given you some of the reasons. I have not explained all the environmental issues, including water flow if Jinks Creek is dredged. The water flow, the velocity flow, the storm surge if North Jinks Creek is dredged could put and would put the east end of the island in jeopardy. The reason why we have to reinforce the east end of the causeway should be a signal. And that was caused by Tropical Storm Matthew. It wasn't even a hurricane. So my concern is property first and the protection of it. Thank you.
Are you welcome? At this time, guys, I'd like Robert to address these questions and then do the same with John and Charlie and Jan. So could you address the $600,000 cost? Because I thought you said you didn't have a cost to that.
No, I don't have a cost for that. I don't know where that came from. I would not think it would be anywhere near that, but we can confirm that within the next 2 weeks.
And the water quality, and that's the two scoping meetings that you and I attended. Water quality came up once, the latter, and that they were addressed with the fact that we could do a variance in North Jinks Creek, but it's not guaranteed that we'd have a variance. But there's a way around not doing North Jinks Creek.
Correct. It's not a federal issue. The feds don't have any say in the water quality issue. That's a state issue. Right. So it's most of the state agencies that were in the room, which was all but one, indicated that they would support a variance. They indicated that dredging would be necessary to be compliant with their rules. However, if we requested a variance, that they would support that in this case. Division of Water Quality was not in the room, and those are the ones that will have the final say. I believe if the agencies are behind us, if Division of Water Quality is behind us, then it will be no issue. The CRC, I think, will.
But this is the reason why we took that direction of, putting Jinks Creek as a variance and doing the feeder canals and the channels and parts of South Jinks Creek and the Bay Area, because we can get those variants and that approval quicker if we don't tag Jinks Creek to it. Is that correct?
Correct.
So the reason, ladies and gentlemen, we're going this direction is to just start it in November. If we add Jinks Creek, and from my understanding, it may take the next dredging season to do it. So to start the program, we have to do it this way. And I felt in the scoping meetings I attended, that's what they clearly stated to us, to get it started quicker, remove Jinks Creek for right now, and go forward with everything else. Is that right, Robert?
Yes, if the permit application includes North Jinks Creek, it will be probably several years before it's.
Several years, because then we'll have to do an environmental study, and that's nothing to do with the town council. That is the state agencies telling us. So this thing, people coming to us about dredging, this town council wants to do the dredging, but we have to do it so we can do it this year and not 4 or 5 years from now. So, John, any questions?
Yeah, this is a bit complicated to follow everything in here. The understanding I had from the previous meeting was just to completely drop all consideration of North Jinks Creek before we do our permitting or anything else. It was not a discussion to include Jinks Creek in the permit or to drop Jinks Creek from the permit. It was to take North Jinks Creek as one of the components of this dredging program and drop it completely. My biggest concern, I mean, I understand the process of, if I understand the permitting process that you explained last time, we put a permitting in for, just call it all the maintenance areas. This would go through and it would be rejected. And we would then have to apply for a variance. Is that part correct so far?
That is, it would be conditioned so that the permit would be issued and conditioned so that the town would be required to establish deep water access.
Okay, and so before maintenance dredging is approved, we have to establish deep water access.
Yes.
Okay.
And at that point, that's when the variance comes in.
Then we have to go back in and ask for variance.
Yes.
To say we don't have deep water access.
Yes.
Okay. And the variance that they approve would be, okay, so the part there is if we don't go for deep water access, first, if that has to be in there, then there are two choices. One is North Jinks Creek and the other is Tubbs Inlet. Tubbs Inlet, 1, hasn't been costed and surveyed. 2, has always been a very hazardous way to get to the Atlantic Ocean. 3 is not the, if you call it for lack of anything else, the popular route to get to the Atlantic Ocean. The deep water access from the canals is to go through the Atlantic Intercoastal Waterway, primarily. And going anywhere else would be pretty much a waste of time consideration, because digging out through 3 components of Tubbs Inlet would be extremely expensive, long-term, and just wouldn't be maintained at all over any period of time. And that's without doing a formal engineering study. The discussions also pointed out that one major concern would be creating a hole by dredging the maintenance areas and not dredging Jinks Creek. The hole being the water would not wash in and wash out cleanly every time it goes through there. And that has a negative impact. And the one reason to keep Jinks Creek in until further resolution is to make sure that issue of creating a hole, which was a, if I understood correctly, a state requirement that was put in. We can't dredge below the water level of the excess
Correct.
exit areas, either to Tubbs Inlet or to Jinks Creek. Okay. The question becomes why we don't have to, when we do the permit, we don't have to include Jinks Creek in the permit. But why do we as a council have to kill North Jinks Creek before all the options have gone through and have been exercised? What is the potential that if we take and say we're not going to do anything at all with North Jinks Creek, that somewhere in this permitting process, the various agencies or the Coastal Resources Commission might not come up and say, hey, you know, you've taken your options out, you can't dig a hole there, we're not going to let you do anything. My point is, it's premature in this process, until we've gone through all of the applications, to take one of our options off the table and to say this council is going to not consider North Jinks Creek at all or any time in the future. And that's what my biggest concern is, and that's what I take from this topic, is to eliminate North Jinks Creek from any consideration in the future. I am not saying, and I haven't recommended, that we include North Jinks Creek in the initial proposal to go through there. What I am saying is keep North Jinks Creek on the books. It's not costing us anything to keep it on the books. It is keeping our options open, and then go through with the permitting process that you have proposed. Am I missing something in there?
No, that's my understanding. That's correct as far as
I
I'm
have a
aware.
question real quick on what John just said. On the, if we do not take Jinks Creek off, I thought you said to us there's about a $90,000 cost to keep it on the books because you have to do more studies or testing of the waters. Is that not true, or all our cost in doing Jinks Creek is done with? Is that going to cost an additional money?
No, it's where we're at is North Jinks Creek doesn't come into play again until we go to the variance. So we're not touching North Jinks Creek. When we get to the variance request, it's either going to be accepted or denied. If the variance is denied, then the council will need to make a decision of either kill the project or Tubbs Inlet or North Jinks Creek, or go dredge behind Ocean Isle Beach.
Like John says, does it hurt us to take it off of the dredging scoping completely? Will that hurt us? Will that, taking a card out of our hand? Do we need to keep it in there? Is there a reason why we should or shouldn't?
If Jinks Creek is removed from the project permanently and the variance is denied, we are saying, in my opinion, we are saying that we're going through Tubbs Inlet. In order to establish deep water access, we will dredge Tubbs Inlet.
So the variance would have to be for Tubbs Inlet.
No, the variance would be, this comes into play, if the variance is accepted and approved, then nothing happens to North Jinks Creek, nothing happens to Tubbs Inlet. We go and dredge the maintenance areas and decide if there is a path forward from there. If the variance is denied, in order for the project to move forward, we will have to dredge either North Jinks Creek or Tubbs Inlet.
But at that time, if we do, like say if the council says we're going to take it off the dredging right now, we could also add it down the road, correct?
Yes, I mean, the council can do what they want.
Right.
As far as the permit is submitted, the permit moving forward will not consider North Jinks Creek.
And that's without a vote today.
That's
or
without a
next
vote
week
today.
Anyway. So we're going forward with dredging, regardless of what we do next in 2 weeks.
Right, regardless of the decision on North Jinks Creek, the permit will be submitted the same.
Okay, Jan, do you have any questions?
Yes, I do.
Go ahead.
First of all, I would like to clarify for everybody sitting in this room that what is going forward right now is the 4 feeder canals, the 4 finger canals, the feeder canal, and the Bay Area, and part of South Jinks Creek. This that you presented to us at the last meeting, this is the only thing that is going forward for a permit. Is that correct?
Correct.
And that does not include North Jinks Creek.
Correct.
What about Marion Turtle?
Well, that's a separate permit.
Please, excuse me.
I'm just clarifying that point, sorry.
So anyway, this is what is going forward. We are going forward. This council is doing everything it can to move forward to see that all of the canals, the maintenance canals that you folks are having fill in, we are moving forward as fast as we can to get those canals dredged for you folks. We're working as hard as we can to get them dredged for you. You deserve to have them dredged. You bought your property knowing that they would be dredged. But you did not buy your property knowing North Jinks Creek would be dredged. That was never part of the deal.
Charlie?
And as far as the variance goes, I'm not finished.
I'm sorry.
As far as the variance goes, the variance that is with this permit will be, that will go before the CRC, will be for them to say, yes, you can violate that water quality standard with this dredging project. Has nothing to do with North Jinks Creek. Am I correct? If they say you can violate those water quality standards, which at the scoping meeting, everybody there felt sure that they would, or give you some kind of relief, that does not have anything to do with North Jinks Creek. Is that not correct?
We would not have to dredge North Jinks Creek if
Thank you.
if that occurs.
You done?
I'm not sure.
Okay. So real quick, what John said earlier, why she's thinking, Mary's Creek and Turtles Creek is a different application. It doesn't have anything to do with this project.
And to be clear, should we ever go forth with North Jinks Creek, that would have to be a separate permit from these canals that I just spoke of. Is that not correct?
Depending on the variance. If the variance is denied, some deep water access would have to be included in the permit application.
Okay. If the variance is not denied, then Jinks Creek is still going to have to be a separate project. And I believe you said at the last meeting here that for North Jinks Creek to be dredged, it would take 2 to 3 years to get permit approval. Is that not correct?
I would expect that, yes.
And does that include an environmental impact statement?
It would include some kind of additional environmental documentation. I'm not
Thank
sure
you.
if it would be the EIS or not. But.
Thank you.
And so the audience can understand, that could be up to $1 million. for that
More
stuff.
than.
Up to $1 million and more. And that
What would be?
environmental study, if Jinks Creek is to be dredged. So there's a lot of costs we have to be concerned with. I mean, the taxpayers of this town is not going to pay for that study. That's going to be the 350 homes. So you better watch what you wish for sometimes. Charlie?
Yeah, I have a couple things. This is one of 3 issues placed on the agenda today by Mr. Serrato, where he did not supply background or discussion information. And not having that information makes it hard for the other council members and members of the public.
What information are you
Rich,
referring
Rich,
to?
Rich, no. Well, let him finish, please.
It makes it almost impossible for others to gather any facts that could help in a reasonable and knowledgeable discussion of the issue. This also puts members of the general public at a huge disadvantage if, knowing what the issue is about, might want to make public comments prior to the discussion.
Charlie, right now, I'd like to address Rob on a question.
I'm not finished.
All right.
I'm just saying, this was put on the agenda with no information.
But Charlie, we've been discussing this for a year. So it's not like these issues have not been brought up.
This was a new item that Mr. Serrato added to the agenda at the last meeting.
Yes, and I took it off to put on this meeting here. So it's been a week. The public's known about this for a week, Charlie. Please address Robert with a question.
Do you believe that the purpose of completely removing Jinks Creek from the dredging project would ever be put back on?
That's a little bit above my pay grade.
Okay. Let me put it another way. How long will it take, or could it take, for the rest of the dredging project, the canals, finger canals and the bay, take without Jinks Creek, North Jinks included?
The permit application, not including North Jinks Creek, could be approved by this, we could be dredging by this November, possibly.
Okay.
Charlie, that's what they did say at the SCOPA meeting. It'd be November.
I'm good.
Council, have any more questions? John, go ahead.
Sure, okay. I still haven't heard clearly. What is the benefit of taking North Jinks Creek completely off of our books as any type of consideration whatsoever in the future?
Send it over here.
Yeah.
Can we, I'd like to recess just John, just for a second.
I responded that day.
Workplace violence.
Death on Wings has been taken care of.
I call to order.
I already told you to shoot it.
Good job, Richard.
Okay, so my question is, why would Sunset Beach benefit from canceling all consideration whatsoever of North Jinks Creek at this time? And why do we need to cancel it at this time? Keep it on our books, keep it as a potential for the future, keep it as a contingency if something comes up that we cannot anticipate. But going at this point and making pretty much just a decision to drop it completely from the books is different than saying it's not going to be part of this permit that goes in. I pointed out at the last meeting that the council approved in June 2017 that when the oyster survey is done to submit the permits for the first portion, the maintenance areas. And after the scoping meeting, it was time to submit the permits. And I say it's now still time to submit the permits for all of those areas, not including North Jinks Creek. But I disagree wholeheartedly with taking that out of our quiver, if you will, in case we ever happen to need it for some type of consideration that cannot be anticipated at this time in the future.
Robert, real quick, the permits have been asked for, correct?
For the maintenance areas, they have not. We've not submitted for the maintenance areas.
And you'll be doing that shortly?
We're working out, we have to find a beach placement location where we're going to put the compatible material.
Have you talked to Ocean Isle regarding this issue?
We have, and they have said no, or they said they did not want to participate financially in the project whatsoever.
So they want the sand for free?
They said they would provide us a place on the shoreline to put it, but would not pay for it.
Mr. Benton, council, may I ask a question to the consultant?
Absolutely, Grady.
All right. From my perspective, I'm not the legislative body, obviously. But as a town attorney, I'd like to know if you have an opinion as to what is the prejudice or the harm or the pitfalls through your eyes of leaving North Jinks Creek possibility in the scope that's presently being pursued by this town? What is the downside to leaving it in the town's menu of options to analyze and decide in the future as to whether it wishes to pursue North Jinks Creek or not?
I don't see a downside to leaving North Jinks Creek as an option to consider later.
Is there a increased cost associated with leaving it in the current menu of options to research?
No.
Thank you.
Council, any other questions?
Yes,
I
do.
Go ahead, Jen. Jen, real quick, Rich.
I guess this goes toward Grady and the rest of the council as well. This program was designed by a previous council. It is my understanding that the council following the previous council can't be held to something that council decided. Therefore, should we decide to leave it on or take it off, it could be changed by the next council. Is that not correct?
I don't think Robert's in a position
I
to
think
answer
you
that.
are.
I think generally speaking, you are correct, Ms. Harris. And I think the other way of asking the question I just posed to Robert is, are there risks of if we remove, the council remove North Jinks Creek possible project as an aspect to the current situation, do you perceive there to be any pitfalls or prejudice that would fall upon the town if it were to later pick back up, adding North Jinks Creek back into it? I mean, is there a pitfall now? Does it, any negatives to taking it out of the town's current efforts at researching what is and is not going to be dredged?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
John?
One negative that comes to mind real quick is if they come up and say that we have to have access to deep water to do any dredging, we have two options, two viable options, and one is Jinks Creek and the other Tubbs. And Tubbs is really a bad option. I mean, so a pitfall is there if they come up and say you have to have the access to deep water.
And I wanted, maybe I didn't clarify or wasn't clear, but I was answering the question to Mr. Richardson as if the town council later approved one way or the other to add it back in. If Jinks Creek is removed from the project completely forever and the variance is denied, then the only, or the best option from that point is Tubbs Inlet. We could try and dredge behind Ocean Isle Beach, but I don't think that's a viable option.
But we also could add Jinks Creek back to the project.
Well, that's it. That's why I was asking the question. If the council, if we remove it now and add it later, same.
Is there any harm to the town? Is there going to be delay, increased cost, anything that you can think of in your experience in doing that?
No.
Mr. Mayor, yes. At the scoping meeting, the Corps of Engineers did not express any difficulty obtaining this variance. They thought it would be just a routine event. Is that correct? Well, I'm maybe using softer words, but they didn't indicate that there would be any problems. Is that correct?
Well, the variance is a state issue, not a federal.
Yeah, I understand, but if the feds like it, it's usually accepted.
He's saying it's not a federal decision. It's a state decision.
State only.
Not the Army Corps of Engineers.
Yeah, no, I understand that, but he gave it a sense that it would not be difficult to get.
From the
The
state.
variance.
From the state.
From the state. Yes, from the state.
Is that true, Robert?
The only entity that could stop or would stop this variance request is Division of Water Quality, which is a branch of the state. They were not in the room, and we have had discussions, and they are on the fence. The Corps.
When will they get off the fence?
When they see the permit application, when they review it.
The other question that I have is, we did do an oyster survey analysis, which was recommended by the Environmental Resource Committee. Just as a matter of record, that analysis cost $90,000, which the town paid $30,000 for it, and both Mr. Benton and I voted against the oyster analysis. The EIS could cost at least $1 to $2 million. Now, who will pay the lawsuit, the legal fees to Mr. Richardson if environmental groups decide that if we do proceed to dredge Jinks Creek and they file a lawsuit against the town, is the town liable? Who pays Mr. Richardson?
Richardson.
That question is so loaded and impossible to answer.
Thank you,
Because
Mr.
we have
Richardson.
no idea what grounds would be asserted to challenge any town council or town actions, and would have to be evaluated on a case-by-case basis. But I would suspect that if the town gets permits from all the applicable state agencies to allow for the dredging of whatever it wants to dredge, then the group or the persons wishing to challenge town action is going to have to challenge permitting that's been authorized by the state's regulatory bodies that oversee and have jurisdiction to oversee the dredging projects of the town. So in effect, the would-be challengers of the town action would be suing the town together with the Division of Water Quality, the Coastal Resources Commission, and I could go on and on and on, and that's going to be a tough road to sled in litigation. In terms of who's going to pay it, again,
That's the question I raised. I
It's
didn't say
very-
whether it was going to be difficult
Well,
or not.
but-
I just want to know who pays
Well,
for it, the state?
I guess, Mr. Serrato, it's in looking at a hypothetical on facts that aren't before me, I would say that you have to evaluate, is there going to be any merit to such person or group bringing such a lawsuit against the town? And I find it highly improbable that such a lawsuit would have any merit. But if it had a scintilla of merit, I would imagine that if the town's insurance, League of Municipalities doesn't cover those defense costs, the town itself would have to pay for those legal fees associated with defending the town's position.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, Mr. Mayor.
And that would be the.
Real quick, Jan was next, guys.
I would like to make a proposal, please. It's quite obvious to me. Well, first of all, let me say this, that I have attended so many Coastal Resources Commission meetings, I can't remember the number. I have seen many, many, many variances argued before the Coastal Resources Commission, and I have always found them to be very reasonable in their rulings. Having said that, I believe that this community, and probably not just this community, but many coastal communities need more education on what we have out there along Jinks Creek. What we have is a coastal estuary system that is very fragile, and it is a viable resource for revenues for the state of North Carolina. All of this marsh you see out behind Sunset Beach is a primary nursery area. That means that's where our seafood is born. 75% of the seafood we eat is born out in these estuaries, and we don't want to do anything to disrupt that balance. Therefore, I would like for us, the town of Sunset Beach, to have some experts, and I'm not saying you're not an expert, but some experts on the ecology of the estuaries, please come speak to this council and to the citizens of this town to educate us why there are concerns with what we are attempting to do. Would you all please agree to that?
Well, today we're not making any motion to vote.
No,
so
you're right.
We have to bring that up June 4th, sorry.
Mike,
John
for
or
Mr.
Sherrod?
Richardson, you would have the same answer if all the property owners affected by not dredging North Jenks sued the town for the decrease in value of their property.
I find that scenario, if there were such a lawsuit brought by property owners because they're dissatisfied that the town council elected not to do dredging along their water body that their property is adjacent to be on its face lacking any credible claims, short of some contractual agreement of which I'm unaware, where this town promised some property owners that they were going to dredge and they should buy in reliance upon the town saying so. And even then, whether or not that would even be a binding sort of statement, I find it highly unlikely that that lawsuit would have any merit if the town ultimately elected not to dredge anything or parts that they had originally intended to dredge.
Thank you, but
John?
I was being facetious.
Okay.
Mr.
No,
Mayor?
no, John, then you, Rich.
A problem with this last part of the discussion was Mr. Serrato raised a hypothetical situation that goes way beyond the question today is whether we keep North Jinks Creek as a viable portion of this program that we have, even though it's not going to be put in a permit. You know, raising the potential cost of doing a environmental study of whatever it happens to be, the potential of lawsuits against us, whatever that happens to be, is all just a major distractor from the issue, because we are not talking about dredging North Jinks Creek. We are not making a decision to dredge North Jinks Creek. The question is there any harm whatsoever of keeping the potential to discuss North Jinks Creek as part of our program?
John, I think we've got that answer.
And I've been it. And I take all the other stuff is just a distractor. It comes out like a scare tactic.
Well, we've all done that, unfortunately, on this council.
Mr. Mayor,
Go
may
ahead.
I? First of all, it is the council's fiduciary responsibility to understand the long-term impact of every decision that it makes. We do not I forget the word I used to use. You're not helpful.
Commit?
No, I can't say it.
Use another one, Rich.
We have to think out of the box. And it's our responsibility to look at the long-term impact, whether it's a legal issue or an environmental issue or a quality of life issue. And so that's our responsibility. We have made decisions in the past that has cost this town hundreds of thousands of dollars, and I won't go into them, John.
Real
The
quick.
long-term impact is that there
the
is
other
no
question-
cost.
the
There
oth-
is no cost with keeping it on the program at this point in time. If there is, and the fiduciary responsibility is to make sure that we have options open in the future, should we need to have option open in the future. We're not committing ourselves to any other financial expenditure.
We're not making a vote today, John, anyway.
No, I'm just making sure some of these.
All right,
votes are
that's
clear,
fine. I
because they
accept
get-
that.
They get clouded when you,
Yeah, I accept that, but
Muddle 'em up there.
don't please use.
Let Jan go first, and then next, Rich, please.
I would like to say that I think that is a decision for this council to make. Mr. Neal can't make that decision for us. It's a decision that we will make. And I
I
don't.
never said anything different.
Guys, real quick. Robert, do you have anything else to add to this?
I have a couple of questions, Mr. Mayor. I just want to get some clarification, and one is, a late curveball was thrown into this ball game. And that curveball was that if we don't dredge North Jinks Creek, it will close. Is that true?
I never said that. I'm not aware of that.
I asked that question.
Thank you, Charlie. North Jinks Creek, according to the Corps of Engineers and NOAA, that I had a sidebar discussion with after the Scopie meeting, because I was too embarrassed to ask the question in public, indicated that there's no scientific evidence that Jinks Creek will close. I don't know why that was brought up in the mixture at the 11th hour of the game.
It wasn't.
And the
it-
other
it wasn't
question,
at the
let me finish, Mr. Nern, and the other question that I have is, I'm very concerned with the sand going to the east end of Ocean Isle. Ms. Harris indicated a statute that indicates or permits that, I think it's called Jan, help me out, the downdrift beach, the sand.
Well, Rich, we don't have to address that issue right now, because Ocean Isle said they did not want the sand if they have to pay for it.
No, hold, no, this is the sand from, I believe, the bay.
Correct.
Okay, this is the bay. The downdrift statute indicates that that sand that we're going to be giving to Ocean Isle or selling it or whatever indicates that that sand should be at the nearest downdrift beach. Help me out, Jen, you're the expert on this. And I don't know why it's not going to either Sunset Beach or part of Palm Cove.
Well, the reason why, what I'm understanding, Robert helped me out, the cost, we'd have to get another permit to dump it on Sunset Beach at a higher cost to us.
We have to have a purpose and need to.
And where would we put it on Sunset Beach? We're gaining beach, we're not losing beach, so where are we gonna put it? Well, that's, isn't that the
What was
oxymoron?
that, Dan? I didn't hear you.
The backside of Palm Cove is eroding.
What are you saying, Mark? It goes to Palm Cove? It doesn't?
Palm Cove is classified ocean erodible AEC, area of environmental concern, which is the same classification as oceanfront has. That means Palm Cove would be eligible to have sand put on it.
Is that correct, Robert?
To my knowledge, it is, yes.
So why are we having these discussions with Ocean Isle?
Because we voted to do that to see if they would.
I understand we voted reluctantly, but we also, listen to me, we
Don't
also,
put a word in my mouth. I did not vote reluctantly. I voted to look into it because it could incur some of the cost to Sunset Beach. It would be about $40,000, say $3,000 to $4,000 per homeowner. The other 10 houses, that's $40,000. It helps deter the cost, Richard. We just said look into it. It doesn't hurt to look into things, Richard.
I'm not saying not to look into it, but I want us to be mindful of the law.
We are mindful of the law.
And I don't want to break the law.
Robert, at that time, did not, at the scope of meeting, was that addressed where we could go to Ocean Isle legally?
Yes. It's, if I could add, it's done on Mason Inlet, Carolina Beach Inlet, Cape River entrance, Lockwood's Folly Inlet, Float Inlet.
So guys, we just cannot pick and choose the issues that we agree and disagree with. It was discussed several times in scope of meetings that we could sell it or give it to Ocean Isle, so legally. So let's not pick and choose what we want to fight about. Let's be factual about what we're saying. Any more questions?
I have one thing. On the closing of Jinks Creek, possible closing of Jinks Creek, my concern was the exchange of fresh seawater and or the lack of the exchange of fresh seawater and the effect it would have on shellfish and everything else that depends on the fresh water. It wasn't brought up at the last minute. It was a question that was asked the first time Robert reported to us.
I agree, Charlie.
And all I did was ask the question.
Charlie, that is why we need to have someone come give us some education on estuaries and how they work.
I understand basically how that all works, but I'm no expert, and I never will be. But I just asked a simple question, and now Mr. Serrato is making a big deal of it.
All right. Okay, guys. Lisa, can we put that on the agenda for June 4th, the discussion on asking an expert to come in to discuss for the town and for the council, please?
It's going to be a crowded June 4th meeting.
Well, maybe we can push it off, but let's just get the ball rolling.
Expert at that meeting.
We're discussing it. We can't vote on it today, Rich.
I didn't speak that.
I'm just saying we can't vote on it to bring one in.
June 4th meeting is going to be crunch time.
We can vote on an issue this short, quick.
Budget to discuss and other issues.
I'm sure we can handle it. Any other questions for Robert?
I'm just wrapping this up.
Wrapping up, that's what I'm trying to do. All right? Robert, thank you very much.
Mark, if I could, Councilman Bennett, if I could clarify,
Sure.
when I responded to the question about Jinks Creek closing, I want to be clear that I meant South Jinks near the Palm Cove where we're seeing the shoaling, extensive shoaling. If I portrayed that to be North Jinks Creek or toward the entrance or whatever, that was incorrect. It should have been, I was referring to South Jinks Creek only where we're seeing the shoaling now. We would have to do, it would take more information to determine what's happening in North Jinks as far as shoaling and possible closure in the future. But so I was referring in that response to South Jinks only.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
How about a break, Mr. Mayor?
A break?
Break.
Can we have a 5-minute recess, please? Thank you.